I bet your whole life you've probably heard, you shouldn't care what people think. Doesn't matter what they say. Don't worry about what they think about you. Well, I'm here to tell you that a lot of that's wrong, but probably not in the way you think. And today I want to explain some of that to you. What I'm going to go through is something that I've actually talked to some other senior managers in my company about, and it's the idea of building the brand of you. It's that you need to understand how you see yourself and how other people see you to understand and make sure you're portraying the right version of yourself. What I want to lay out is actually 3 questions, a little bit of an exercise, 3 questions to ask yourself, and actually some other fun stuff at the end to really help you understand what the brand of you is and make sure it's on the right track and really where it's where you want to be. So the first question is, if you were to describe yourself, let's say you meet somebody new and you had to introduce yourself, give yourself your little elevator pitch of you, what would you say about yourself without saying who you are, where you're from, your title, your job? How would you describe you without using the typical descriptors that we like to use? And I actually I wrote something down for myself just to share an example. I consider myself to be a curious observer and constant learner, obsessed with personal development and all things business growth. I love to build things with my hands and solve hard problems by thinking outside the box. I also love my family and am very much obsessed with Halloween. That would be, my pitch of myself to others, just to give you an idea of how do you think about yourself. I didn't once say, "Oh, my title is this. I work at this company." I am a father, but I didn't say I'm a father. You can probably infer it by saying I love my family, but but you want to be able to. How can you describe yourself without using those typical descriptors that I think the world kind of shoves down our throat of, like, these are important things. You should care about your title. No, how do you describe you without doing that? So that's the first part of the exercise. The second part is, your friend is calling you. They need help. And they call you as the first person. Why are they calling you? What are you a domain expert in that would make somebody say, I need to call you first before I call anybody else, because you have the knowledge, or you are the right person to go talk to understand the steps to take, to understand how to solve a problem, to how to go do something, to understand something better. This is important because it gives you an idea of, you should think about what you believe your strengths are. For me, I'll give you another example here. Like, I have a friend that I talk to all the time, Mike, and we talk a lot about business. And I love it when he calls me and says, hey, I want to bounce some ideas off of you. Because, like I said, I love to think outside the box. I'm obsessed with business growth, and I love to get those phone calls. And it's kind of reassuring because I'm like, oh, cool. That kind of aligns with, the way I think I am. But that's the second thing is, if somebody calls you first, it's the very first person, what are they calling you for? I want you to think about this for yourself. What do you want people to call you for? What is the thing that you want to be known for that people reach out to you about? I'd also flip it on the other side too. What do you think is the last thing people will call you for? Now, it's always important to understand your own strengths, but you should also be accepting of your weaknesses. And weaknesses aren't a bad thing. They're just deficiencies, right? They're just an area that maybe you want to grow, or you have to understand and self-realize that it's not something that you're good at and you need help, right? And that's fine. Schools, I think, often teach us that we have to be good at everything, but that's bogus. We need to be good at a few things very specifically, and then know when we need to pull in others for help. So that's the second thing. So first one is, how do you describe yourself without using your typical descriptors? Second is, if somebody calls you first for help, what do you want them to call you about? What is the thing you want to be known for? And the third thing is, what is your mission? What are some of your goals? What are some of your standards? When somebody says, hey, I know AJ, he is very passionate about XYZ, and he would never do these things. Think about these as, what are your non-negotiables in life? What are the things you would never sacrifice because that's core to who you are and what you do, where you want to see yourself going in the future? Now, this is important to understand because it might feed into a little bit of who you are and how you describe yourself, but this is really now getting in deeper into the who you are and what are you about, the things that you stand up for, what are you passionate about, what are the non-compromise, the things that you'll never compromise in yourself. Now we have these 3 questions. How would you describe yourself without using the typical descriptors? If somebody called you first with a problem, what would you like them to call you about? What do you want to be known for? And the third thing is, what are your motivations? What are your standards? What are the things that are non-negotiable in your life that even if times get tough, people know that they can rely on you to never sacrifice? Think about that. Write it down about yourself. And then we're going to move on to the second part of this exercise. Once you write those 3 things down, and actually physically write them down, you can type them in your phone if you want, but I find when you put things on paper, it actually makes it more real. It's more tangible. So now that you've done that, move on to the second part of the exercise. This is where it gets kind of fun. I want you to take those same questions, find 3 of your friends, and ask them the same questions, but ask them to answer about you. This is where things get interesting, because a lot of times when we think about the brand of you or the brand of ourselves, we have our vision of who we believe we are. The problem is there's a gap, and this is where you need to care about what people think. As you get responses to your questions, you need to look at, how did my friends or my coworkers, this is another great exercise to do at work too, how did my coworkers answer these questions, and how do they see me? How does that compare to how you see you? This gap is really the part to go work on. This is understanding the brand of you today versus where you want the brand of you to be in the future. There might be some things that you think about yourself that you truly believe and you're putting out there to the world, but maybe it's not a strong enough message, or maybe it's not clear to people, and that's something you have to go work on. This gap is important because it gives us an idea of better aligning reality to our thoughts, understanding where we need to maybe spend some more time to grow how we want us to be seen by others, and just take a little more time to better reflect into, how some of the actions that we take to kind of build this vision of ourselves, build that brand of you. That's important. That's what this is really coming down to, is the brand of you. How do you define it? How do you become it? And how do you make sure the world understands it behind you? And this is where I say, yeah, there's definitely times in life where you should not care about what people think about you, because it's aligned to the brand of you. Where you start to care and need to care is if people have a vision of you that is different from where you think you are. And this creates usually a lot of friction in people, is they think the world sees them a certain way, but they don't. And that often takes a lot of internal reflection and understanding some of those gaps to go work on those areas. And it's not a bad thing. None of these things I'm saying are bad. It's just being self-aware of the world around us, how the world operates, and how they see you. So it really comes down to those 3 questions, and I'll repeat them again. How do you introduce yourself, or how would others introduce you without using titles or, words descriptors like, engineer, scientist, anything like that? If somebody calls you first because you have eminent expertise in something, what are they calling you for? And the third thing is, what are your non-negotiables? What are the things that you'd never sacrifice no matter what? So take those, try this exercise out, understand, use this to build the brand, not necessarily for yourself, but with yourself. It helps you grow as a person. It helps you grow in business and in life. And also just take the time to be genuinely you. If you feel that you are acting the way that you want to act, but people don't understand it, just change your messaging a little bit. You never want to try to fake the funk. You never want to try to be somebody you're not, because people smell BS and they'll call you out on it. As long as you can be who you really are, the brand of you will follow. But understanding what that gap is today with where you think you are, or even better, where you want to go in the future, gives you some actionable steps to go take to better build that brand of you out, so you can see who you want to be and how you get there in the future. I hope you guys found some value in this, and really enjoy sharing some of these things I've learned over time. This is something, again, I learned from managers at my company when I've talked about this, and some things that they do with their own employees to help them understand the same brand of you. And I hope it helps you guys out too. Feel free to drop some notes in the comments if you enjoyed this, or just maybe even share a little bit about yourself. How do you see yourself, and any gaps that you've seen in the world to where you thought you were one way, but the world saw you something different, and how you went to go change it. I'm really interested in hearing that from you guys. But thanks again for joining. I really enjoy sharing this stuff with you guys. Hopefully you find value in it, and we'll talk to you all soon. Later.